Colombia and Portugal face off in a head-to-head showdown for the top spot in Group K, with both teams already qualified, but with much more at stake than it seems. Because finishing first or second can completely change the path in the knockout rounds. And when you are up against Portugal with Cristiano Ronaldo, João Felix, Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva and company, and a Colombia that arrives with confidence, with talent, and with the hope of achieving something great in this World Cup, the match automatically becomes an event that nobody wants to miss. So let's go straight to what many of you are looking for. What time is the Colombia vs Portugal match played, country by country? So there's no doubt. In Spain, the match will be played at 1:30 a.m. on Sunday, June 28. In Portugal, it will start at 12:30 a.m. In Colombia, the ball will start rolling at 6:30 p.m. In Mexico, the match will begin at 5:30 p.m. Central Time. In the United States, it will depend on the time zone. On the East Coast, in cities like Miami, New York, or Washington, it will be at 7:30 p.m. In the Central Zone, in cities like Dallas, Houston, or Chicago, it will start at 6:30 p.m. In the Mountain Zone, like Denver, it will be at 5:30 p.m. And on the West Coast, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Las Vegas, or Seattle will be able to follow it, starting at 4:30 p.m. In Canada, Toronto and Montreal will experience it starting at 7:30 p.m., Winnipeg at 6:30 p.m., Calgary and Edmonton at 5:30 p.m., and Vancouver at 4:30 p.m. If we go to Central America, in Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica, the match will begin at 5:30 p.m. In Panama, it will be at 6:30 p.m. In the Caribbean, in the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and Cuba, the match will start at 7:30 p.m. In Venezuela, Bolivia, Paraguay, and Chile, the match will begin at 7:30 p.m. In Ecuador and Peru, it will be at 6:30 p.m. just like in Colombia. And in Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil, the kickoff will be at 8:30 p.m. So now you know, set your clocks right, because this Colombia versus Portugal match promises to be one of the best games of the day. Colombia wants to show that they are ready to compete against anyone. Portugal wants to finish the group stage with authority, and top spot in Group K could be decided in 90 minutes that promise a lot of tension, pace, and big names on the field. And now let's move on to one of the sections you ask for the most in all these videos. Where can you watch Colombia versus Portugal live? Because depending on the country you're in, the broadcast changes completely. Let's start with Colombia, where the excitement for the Cafetera national team is more alive than ever. The match can be watched live in its entirety on Caracol Televisión and RCN Televisión, the two networks broadcasting the 2026 World Cup for free. In addition, it will also be available on D Sports and DGO for those who prefer to follow the match through digital platforms. In Portugal, the match will be broadcast on RTP1, which will offer the signal for free, and also on Sport TV, which continues to provide full World Cup coverage for the entire country. The reality is that the team led by Néstor Lorenzo arrives at one of its best moments in recent years. The tricolor has performed excellently in the first two rounds of the World Cup. They debuted with a very solid 3-1 victory against Uzbekistan, in a match where they left a very good impression both in attack and defense. They went on to earn another 3 points by defeating the Democratic Republic of the Congo 1-0. A much more evenly matched game, but Colombia once again showed one of its greatest strengths, competing even when they're not at their best on the field. Thanks to those two victories, Colombia comes into this third match day with 6 points. The ticket to the round of 16 is already secured, and they only depend on themselves to finish first in Group K. But within the Colombian camp, no one is talking about relaxing, quite the opposite. Néstor Lorenzo's message throughout the week has been very clear. This match should be played as if it were a knockout round, because finishing first can completely change the path to the World Cup final. And avoiding a possible matchup with another big favorite would be a huge reward. Besides, Colombia is giving off a very positive vibe. The team plays as a unit, defends together, presses with intensity, and when they win the ball back, they break out with a lot of speed. A big part of that improvement comes from the form Diaz is in. The Colombian winger has been one of the most impactful players in the tournament. Every time he gets the ball facing forward, he breaks lines, creates numerical advantages, and constantly forces opponents to provide defensive support. But Colombia doesn't depend solely on him. In the midfield, Richard Rios is having a spectacular World Cup. His ability to win the ball back, drive forward, and break the opponent's press has been fundamental to the way the team functions. The team's performance. Next to him is a very experienced player like Jefferson Lerma, who is responsible for providing balance and protecting the defense. And up front, the movement of John Hader Duran is causing a lot of problems for the opposing center-backs. His physical strength and his ability to attack spaces make every Colombian transition a constant threat. Behind them is a defense that has barely conceded any clear chances during this group stage. Davinson Sanchez is leading the backline with great authority, while Daniel Munoz and Johan Mojica are providing constant width on the flanks. And in goal, Camilo Vargas continues to provide a great sense of security between the posts. That is precisely one of Colombia's greatest strengths. They don't rely exclusively on a single star. It's a very well-drilled team, very balanced, very intense. And that usually makes the difference in a World Cup when the big matches come around. However, now comes the biggest test so far, because they'll be facing Portugal. A team full of talent, with players who are used to competing for the Champions League every season, and with a Cristiano Ronaldo who always shows up when nights like these come around. In Spain, the match can be watched completely free on La 1 of Televisión Española, as well as on RTVE Play, so you can follow it from any device. And it will also be available on DAZN, which offers all 104 matches of this World Cup. In Mexico, the Colombia vs Portugal match can be watched on Canal 5 Las Estrellas, TUDN, and the VIX platform, which continues to offer complete coverage of the tournament. In the United States, where millions of both Colombian and Portuguese fans live, there will be two main options. If you prefer the broadcast in English, the match can be watched on Fox. And if you want to watch it in Spanish, it will be available through Telemundo, as well as the Fox Sports app, Fox One, Fubo, and Peacock platforms. In Canada, the broadcast will be handled by TSN, CTV, and RDS for the French-speaking audience. If we go to South America, you probably want to watch it in Spanish, it will be available on the D-Sports website, although also on Televisión Española, where it will be available in Spanish. The match can also be followed on Telefe, Tique Sports, and D-Sports. In Chile, it will be available on Television and D-Sports. In Peru, it can be watched on America Television and D-Sports. In Ecuador, the match will be broadcast by Teleamazonas and D-Sports. In Venezuela, the broadcast will be handled by Televen and D-Sports. In Bolivia, it can be watched on Red Uno, Unitel, and D-Sports. In Paraguay, the match will be available through Tigo Sports and D-Sports. In Uruguay, the main option will be D-Sports. Meanwhile, in Brazil, the match can be followed on TV Globo, Sport TV, and also through Café KCTV, which continues to broadcast a large part of the World Cup matches. And if you're watching us from Central America, the match will be available through Teletica in Costa Rica, Chapin TV in Guatemala, TCS in El Salvador, Televicentro in Honduras, Canal 10 in Nicaragua, RPC TV, and TVN in Panama. So now you know, it doesn't matter from which corner of the world you're watching us, because you'll be able to enjoy one of the best matches of this group stage. And pay attention, because now comes the most interesting part. Let's analyze how Colombia is coming into this, one of the teams that has left the best impression so far in the World Cup, and why Nestor Lorenzo's team believes they can defeat a star-studded Portugal and finish as leaders of Group K.